We don't treat people like you here, without proper insurance verification. The words sliced through the sterile air of the emergency room like a scalpel through skin. Cold, clinical, final. Dr. Maya Sterling stood in the fluorescent-lit triage area of Sterling Heights Medical Center in Miami, Florida, clutching her throat as it tightened with each labored breath. Her face was flushed, her lips tingling, her vision beginning to blur at the edges. Anaphylactic shock was setting in fast, and she knew it. As a former trauma surgeon, she recognized every symptom. She had maybe 8 minutes before her airway closed completely. But the nurse behind the plexiglass partition, Rachel Thornton, 34, didn't see a doctor. She saw a black woman in yoga pants and a hoodie, no purse, no jewelry, speaking in gasps, asking for urgent care. And in Rachel's eyes, that meant one thing: potential liability, possible fraud, probable non-payment. The intake coordinator beside her, Marcus Webb, 29, leaned back in his chair with arms crossed, eyes narrowed in suspicion. Behind them, Dr. Kenneth Hargrove, 52, the night shift supervisor with 20 years of experience and a reputation for running a tight ship, glanced up from his tablet and made a decision that would end his career in less than 10 minutes. Before we continue, tell me where you're watching from. Comment your city below. And if this moment stopped you in your tracks, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. Now, let's rewind to how this nightmare began. Maya Sterling had been working late at her downtown Miami office, 3 miles from the medical center. At 11:34 p.m., she'd grabbed a late dinner from a food truck she'd never tried before, some kind of fusion wrap with peanut sauce. She didn't think twice about it. She'd eaten Thai food 100 times. But this was different. This sauce had been cross-contaminated with shellfish oil, and Maya, who had a severe shellfish allergy documented in every medical file she'd ever had, didn't know until it was too late. By 11:42 p.m., her tongue started swelling. By 11:45 p.m., she was in her car, driving toward the nearest emergency room, which happened to be Sterling Heights Medical Center. Her medical center, the flagship property of the 12-hospital empire she'd built over 15 years. But she wasn't thinking about that. She was thinking about breathing. She abandoned her car in the emergency bay, doors still open, engine running, and stumbled to the automatic doors at 11:47 p.m. The waiting room was half full. A mother with a feverish child, an elderly man holding his wrist, a teenager with a bandaged hand. They all looked up when she entered, gasping, one hand on the wall for support. Maya made it to the triage window and managed to speak, her voice hoarse and strained. Anaphylaxis. Shellfish. Need epinephrine. Now! Rachel Thornton looked up from her computer screen with the kind of exhaustion that comes from a double shift and too many patients trying to game the system. She saw Maya's appearance. No medical alert bracelet, no EpiPen, no insurance card in hand, and her expression hardened. "I need to see your ID and insurance card," Rachel said flatly. "We can't administer treatment without verification." Maya's hands shook as she patted her pockets. In her panic, she left everything in her office: her purse, her phone, her wallet, her medical ID badge that would have told them exactly who she was. All she had were her car keys, still clutched in her trembling hand. "I don't have it," Maya gasped, each word a struggle. "Left it. Office. Please. I'm allergic. Need AP. Now." Marcus Webb leaned forward, his voice dripping with practiced skepticism. "Ma'am, we get people in here all the time claiming emergencies to skip the line. If you're really having anaphylaxis, where's your EpiPen? Most people with severe allergies carry one." "Didn't know," Maya wheezed, her knees buckling slightly. "Cross-contamination. Please." That's when Dr. Kenneth Hargrove stepped up to the window. He'd been watching from a nurse's station, and something about Maya's demeanor, her desperation, her lack of what he called proper preparedness, rubbed him the wrong way. He'd built his reputation on protocol, on rules, on making sure the hospital didn't get taken advantage of by people looking for free care or drug-seeking behavior. "Miss, I'm going to need you to step back and fill out these forms," he said, sliding a clipboard to the window slot. "Once we verify your insurance status, We can see you. But we have patients who've been waiting longer than you, and they follow a procedure. Maya's vision tunneled. The edges of the waiting room started to darken. She could feel her throat closing, the biological countdown timer that every person with severe allergies fears. Her lips were swelling now, making speech nearly impossible. "Can't breathe," she managed to whisper. "Please." Rachel stood up, but not a help. She pressed a button on the desk that sent an alert to security. "We have a situation in triage," she said calmly into her headset. "Possible non-compliant patient. May need escort." From across the waiting room, a young resident named Dr. Alicia Chun, 28, had been watching the entire exchange. She was on her break, sitting in the corner with a cup of coffee, still in her scrubs. She recognized the signs immediately: the facial flushing, the labored breathing, the hand clutching the throat. This wasn't someone faking. This was someone dying. Alicia jumped to her feet and rushed to the triage window. "She's in anaphylactic shock," she said urgently to Rachel. "Look at her. Facial edema, respiratory distress. We need to get her API right now." Dr. Hargrove turned to Alicia with barely concealed irritation. "Dr. Chun, you're not on duty. This is not your call. We follow protocol here." "Protocol says we treat life-threatening emergencies first." Alicia shot back. "She needs epinephrine now, or she's in a code right here in the waiting room." Marcus Webb shook his head. "We don't even know who she is. No ID, no insurance, no medical history in our system. For all we know, she could be allergic to epinephrine." Alicia stared at him in disbelief. "That's not how allergies work. Epinephrine is the treatment. If we don't give it to her, she dies. Are you really going to let someone die over a clipboard?" But Dr. Hargrove had made up his mind. He'd seen too many people try to manipulate the system, and he wasn't about to let his ER be taken advantage of. "Security is on the way," he said firmly. "If she can't provide proper identification and insurance verification, she'll need to go to the county hospital. They have protocols for indigent care." Maya's legs gave out. She collapsed to her knees right there in the triage area, her breathing now a high-pitched wheeze. The other patients in the waiting room gasped. The mother with the sick child stood up, phone in hand, already recording. "Oh my God," the mother said loudly. "They're letting her die. Someone call 911. A man in the corner, James Mitchell, a local journalist who'd been waiting for stitches after a minor car accident, started live streaming on his phone. "I'm at Sterling Heights Medical Center in Miami," he said into the camera, "and I'm watching the staff refuse to treat a woman who's clearly having an allergic reaction. This is happening right now." Alicia didn't wait for permission. She jumped over the triage counter, grabbed an EpiPen from the emergency supply drawer, and knelt beside Maya. "I'm giving you epinephrine," she said. "You're going to be okay." Rachel lunged forward. "Dr. Chun, you can't do that without authorization. Dr. Hargrove hasn't cleared it." Alicia ignored her and jabbed the EpiPen into Maya's outer thigh through her yoga pants. The device clicked. The medication deployed. And for a moment, the entire triage area fell silent, waiting to see if it would work. Dr. Hargrove's face went red with fury. "Dr. Chun, you just violated hospital policy. You administered medication to an unverified patient without attending physician approval. You're suspended, effective immediately." But Alicia didn't care. She was watching Maya's face, monitoring her breathing, checking her pulse. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, Maya's airway began to open. Her wheezing eased. Color started returning to her lips. She was going to live. And that's when security arrived. 2 guards, both large men in dark uniforms, stood over Maya and Alicia with crossed arms. "What's the situation?" the first guard, Officer Luis Campos, asked. Dr. Hargrove pointed at Maya, still on her knees, still struggling to breathe, but no longer in immediate danger of death. "This woman refused to provide proper identification. She needs to be escorted off the premises. She can seek care at County General." Officer Campos hesitated. He looked down at Maya, saw her distress, saw the EpiPen still lie on the floor beside her, and something in his gut told him this was wrong. But Dr. Hargrove was his supervisor. He'd been trained to follow the chain of command. "Ma'am," Campos said gently, reaching down to help Maya to her feet. "I'm going to need you to leave the building." Maya could barely stand, but with Campos supporting her weight, she managed to get upright. Her eyes, still watery and unfocused, swept across the triage area, across Rachel, who wouldn't meet her gaze, across Marcus, who looked uncertain now, across Dr. Hargrove, who stood with his arms crossed, satisfied that he'd maintained order. And then Maya did something that shocked everyone. She reached into the pocket of her hoodie and pulled out the one thing she hadn't left behind, her car key fob. It was attached to a small leather keychain, the kind that luxury car owners get with their vehicles. But on the back of the leather, barely visible, was a hospital ID number embossed in gold. Alicia saw it first. Her eyes widened. She grabbed the keychain and looked at the number, then looked up at Maya, then back at the number. "Oh my God," she whispered. "What?" Rachel asked, annoyed. "What is it?" Alicia's voice was barely audible. "That's an executive ID number. That's a founder-level ID number." Dr. Hargrove snatched the keychain from Alicia's hand and stared at the embossed numbers. His face, already red, went pale. He looked at Maya, really looked at her for the first time, and recognition dawned slowly, then all at once. "No," he breathed. "No, that's not possible." Maya's voice was still hoarse, but stronger now. The epinephrine was working. "My name," she said slowly, "is Dr. Maya Sterling. I am the founder and CEO of Sterling Heights Healthcare Group. And you just refuse to treat me in my own emergency room." The silence that followed was absolute. Rachel's mouth fell open. Marcus dropped the clipboard he'd been holding. Officer Campos stepped back, hands raised as if trying to distance himself from the situation. And Dr. Hargrove just stood there, frozen, as the full weight of what he'd just done crashed down on him. James Mitchell's live stream had been running the entire time. His viewer count had climbed over 3,000. The comments section exploded. "Is that the CEO? They just refused treatment to the owner? This is insane. Sue them all." The mother with the sick child was still recording. She panned her camera from Maya to the staff behind the triage window. "Y'all just messed up bad," she said loudly. "Real bad." Maya took a slow, deliberate breath. The tightness in her chest was easing, but the fury in her eyes was just beginning to ignite. She pulled out Officer Campos's radio from his belt, ignoring a surprised yelp, and pressed the call button. "This is Dr. Maya Sterling," she said, her voice carrying through every radio in the building. "I need executive security in the ER triage immediately. I need the night administrator, the chief of staff, and legal counsel on site within 10 minutes. And I need someone to bring me my phone from my office. Now!" Within 90 seconds, the ER transformed into chaos. Staff members who'd been in break rooms and patient bays came rushing out. The night administrator, Gloria Vance, 45, came running down the hallway in heels that clicked frantically against the linoleum. Behind her came the chief of staff, Dr. Robert Kim, 58, still in his street clothes, having been called from home. Gloria skidded to a stop when she saw Maya standing in triage, still catching her breath, still visibly shaken. With an EpiPen on the floor beside her and a triage window full of stunned staff members. "Dr. Sterling," Gloria gasped. What happened? Are you all right?" Maya's eyes were cold. "What happened, Gloria, is that I walked into my own emergency room having anaphylactic shock, and your staff refused to treat me. They demanded insurance verification while I was actively dying. They called security to remove me. And if it weren't for Dr. Chun here, who violated your precious protocols to save my life, I would be dead right now." Dr. Kim's face drained of color. That can't be right. "Dr. Hargrove?" Dr. Hargrove tried to speak, but no words came out. He looked like a man watching his entire career dissolve in real time. Rachel found her voice first. "We didn't know who she was. She had no ID, no insurance card. She looked like what?" Maya cut her off. "Say it. Finish that sentence." Rachel's mouth opened and closed. Marcus stared at his shoes. Dr. Hargrove finally managed to speak, his voice shaking. We were following protocol. We have to verify insurance before treatment for non-emergency cases. Non-emergency? Alicia exploded. She was in anaphylactic shock. Her throat was closing. What part of that seemed non-emergency to you? Maya held up a hand. No, let him finish. I want to hear this. Dr. Hargrove, please explain to me, as a board-certified trauma surgeon and the person who wrote the clinical protocols for this hospital, which part of our emergency treatment guidelines says to demand insurance verification from a patient actively experiencing anaphylaxis. Dr. Hargrove stammered. We have to protect the hospital from people who might be... From people who might be what? Maya pressed. Poor? Uninsured? Black? Which one of those made you decide I didn't deserve immediate life-saving treatment? The question hung in the air like poison gas. No one answered. James Mitchell's live stream now had over 15,000 viewers. The comments were a flood of outrage. Maya turned to Gloria. How many complaints have been filed against this triage staff in the last 6 months? Gloria hesitated. I don't have that information with me right now. Then get it, Maya said coldly. Pull every complaint, every incident report, every patient satisfaction survey that mentions Rachel Thornton, Marcus Webb, or Dr. Kenneth Hargrove. I want them on my desk within an hour. She turned to Dr. Kim. And you, as chief of staff, I want to know how a physician can work in this hospital for 20 years and not understand that anaphylaxis is a medical emergency that requires immediate treatment. No questions asked. Dr. Kim couldn't meet her eyes. I'll begin a review immediately. Maya took another breath, steadier now, and pulled out her phone, which a young assistant had just rushed in and handed to her. She dialed a number from memory. The call connected immediately. Simone, Maya said. It's me. Yes, I'm fine now. Listen, I need you to initiate a Code Silver review at Sterling Heights, Miami. Full staff audit. I want external investigators, not internal. And I need termination paperwork prepared for 3 employees. I'm sending you the names now. She typed quickly, her fingers flying across the screen. Rachel Thornton, Marcus Webb, Dr. Kenneth Hargrove. She hit send. Rachel gasped. You can't fire us for following protocol. Maya's eyes snapped to her. You didn't follow protocol. You followed bias. There's a difference. Marcus stepped forward, desperation creeping into his voice. Dr. Sterling, please. I was just doing what I was trained to do. Dr. Hargrove told us to be careful about insurance fraud. We were protecting the hospital. By letting a patient die? Maya's voice was quiet, but it cut like glass. By refusing basic emergency care, that's not protection. That's negligence. And if Dr. Chin hadn't violated your precious protocol, you'd all be facing manslaughter charges right now. Dr. Hargrove found his voice again, this time with a hint of defiance. You can't prove we knew how serious it was. She didn't present with the typical. I told you it was anaphylaxis, Maya interrupted. I told you I needed epinephrine. I told you I couldn't breathe. What more typical presentation do you need? Or are you saying that my assessment, as a trauma surgeon with 15 years of emergency medicine experience, wasn't credible because of how I looked? The question silenced him completely. Maya turned to the waiting room, where patients were still watching, still recording. She addressed them directly. I apologize that you had to witness this. To anyone who has received substandard care at this facility, I want you to know that it ends today. If you have experienced discrimination, delayed treatment, or dismissive behavior from our staff, please file a formal complaint. You can contact our patient advocacy line directly. The number is on our website, and unlike before, those complaints will be heard. The mother with the sick child spoke up. I've been waiting 2 hours for someone to see my baby. They keep saying there are more urgent cases, but I watched them make you wait while you were dying. Maya's jaw tightened. She turned to Dr. Kim. Get that child seen immediately. In fact, everyone in this waiting room gets priority treatment. Now. Dr. Kim nodded quickly and started barking orders to the ER staff. Within minutes, nurses were calling patients back, apologizing for the wait, expediting care. Maya turned back to Rachel, Marcus, and Dr. Hargrove. You're suspended effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building. Your access credentials are revoked. You will receive formal termination notices within 24 hours. And if I find evidence that this behavior was part of a pattern, that other patients were denied care under your watch, I will personally ensure that the state medical board reviews every decision you've ever made. Officer Campos, who had been standing awkwardly to the side, stepped forward. Dr. Sterling, I apologize. I was just following orders. I should have questioned them. Maya looked at him for a long moment. You should have. But you also stopped when you realized something was wrong. That shows better judgment than your supervisors. You're not fired, but you are going to be part of the retraining program we're implementing. Every security officer in this hospital is going to learn how to recognize medical emergencies and when to override administrative orders to save a life. Campos nodded, relief washing over his face. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Maya turned to Alicia, who had been standing quietly, watching everything unfold. Dr. Chun, you violated protocol tonight. You gave medication without authorization. You ignored your supervisor's direct order. Alicia lifted her chin. I know. I'd do it again. Maya smiled, the first real smile since entering the building. Good, because that's what doctors do. They save lives, even when bureaucracy tells them not to. Your suspension is rescinded. In fact, as of tomorrow, you're promoted to ER Clinical Director. You'll report directly to me until we find a new department head. Someone who understands that medicine comes before paperwork. Alicia's eyes widened. Dr. Sterling, I don't know what to say. Say yes, Maya replied. Yes, Alicia breathed. Absolutely yes. Maya nodded, then turned to Gloria. I want a full staff meeting tomorrow morning. Every doctor, nurse, technician, and administrator at this facility. I don't care if they're on shift or not. Call them in. Pay them overtime. This is mandatory. Gloria was already typing frantically on her tablet. Considered it done. Maya looked around the triage area one last time, at the staff members who wouldn't meet her eyes, at the patients who were now receiving care, at the live stream still running, documenting every word, and at Dr. Hargrove, who stood broken and humiliated beside the desk where he'd refused her treatment. 20 years ago, Maya said quietly, I was a resident in Chicago. I was doing a rotation in an inner-city ER. A woman came in, homeless, dirty, smelling like the street. She said her chest hurt. The attending physician told me to give her a psych consult and discharge her. Said she was just looking for a place to sleep. I was young. I followed orders. She coded in the waiting room an hour later. Massive heart attack. She died before we could get her back. The triage area was silent. I swore that day that if I ever had the power to change the system, I would. That's why I built Sterling Heights. That's why every protocol I wrote says the same thing. Treat the patient first. Ask questions later. Because the woman who died in that waiting room looked like she didn't matter. Just like I look tonight. Maya's voice hardened. But I did matter. She mattered. And every person who walks through those doors matters, regardless of what they look like, what they're wearing, or whether they have an insurance card. If you can't practice medicine with that understanding, you don't belong here. She pulled out her phone again and made one more call, this time to the local media outlets. This is Dr. Maya Sterling from Sterling Heights Medical Center. I'm issuing a public statement regarding an incident that occurred in our ER tonight. Yes, I'll hold for your news desk. Rachel's face went white. You're going to tell them? You're going to make this public? Maya covered the phone. It's already public. That live stream has been running for 18 minutes. By tomorrow morning, this will be national news. The only question is whether we own the narrative or whether we hide from it. I choose to own it. The news desk picked up. Maya spoke clearly and without hesitation. At approximately 11:47 p.m. tonight, I presented to my own emergency room experiencing anaphylactic shock. I was denied treatment by staff who demanded insurance verification before administering life-saving medication. If not for one courageous physician who violated protocol to save my life, I would have died in that waiting room. This incident has exposed serious failures in our triage procedures and, more importantly, in how we train our staff to see patients as human beings rather than insurance claims. Effective immediately, Sterling Heights, Miami is undergoing a complete operational review. Staff members involved in this incident have been terminated, and I am personally committing $10 million to create a new patient advocacy and anti-discrimination training program that will be implemented across all 12 of our facilities. This is not just about what happened to me tonight. This is about every patient who has ever been dismissed, delayed, or denied care because someone decided they didn't look like they belonged in a hospital bed. The reporter on the other end was silent for a moment, then asked a question Maya couldn't hear. "Yes," Maya answered. "You can quote me on all of that. And yes, I will be available for interviews tomorrow. We're not hiding from this. We're fixing it." She ended the call and looked at the assembled staff. Some scared, some ashamed, all uncertain what came next. "Here's what happens now," Maya said. "Tonight, we treat every patient in this waiting room with the care and dignity they deserve. Tomorrow, we begin rebuilding this department from the ground up. And moving forward, Sterling Heights becomes a hospital that I always meant to be, a place where everyone gets treated no matter what." She turned to leave, then paused and looked back at Rachel, Marcus, and Dr. Hargrove one last time. "You had 8 minutes to save my life tonight. You chose protocol over humanity. In those 8 minutes, you showed me exactly what's wrong with healthcare in this country. People like you are the reason patients die waiting for someone to care. I hope that realization keeps you awake at night, because it's going to keep me awake for a very long time." And with that, Dr. Maya Sterling walked out of the triage area, past the waiting room where patients watched in stunned silence, and into the Miami night. Behind her, the hospital she'd built was already beginning to change, one policy, one person, one moment at a time. The revolution had begun in 8 minutes, but the rebuilding would take much longer. 3 months later, Sterling Heights Medical Center looked the same from the outside. The same gleaming glass facade, the same pristine landscaping, the same emergency bay where Maya had abandoned her car that October night. But inside, everything had changed. The triage area now had a large banner hanging above the check-in desk. "Every patient matters. No exceptions." Below it, a new protocol poster outlined revised emergency treatment guidelines in clear, simple language. The first line read, "Life-threatening emergencies receive immediate treatment. Insurance verification occurs after stabilization. No exceptions." Dr. Alicia Chun, now clinical director, stood in the staff break room addressing a new group of residents on their first day. "What happened here 3 months ago was a wake-up call," she said. "Dr. Sterling could have died because staff members prioritized paperwork over people. That will never happen again. If you see a patient in distress, you treat them. Period. We'll figure out the rest later." The residents nodded, most of them having seen the viral videos, having read the news coverage, having chosen Sterling Heights specifically because of how the hospital had responded to its own failure. Elena Rodriguez, the new director of patient services, walked through the ER with a clipboard, but this time she was conducting rounds in a different way. "Mr. Chun," she said to an elderly man in the waiting area, "I see you've been here for 45 minutes. That's too long. Let me see what's happening with your case." She disappeared through the staff door and returned 5 minutes later with a nurse. "We're ready for you now, sir. I apologize for the wait." The transformation extended beyond Miami. All 12 Sterling Heights facilities had undergone the same intensive review. 47 staff members had been terminated. 216 had been retrained. 63 complaints that had been dismissed or buried were reopened and investigated. Settlements were reached. Apologies were issued. And the culture began to shift. Maya herself had become something unexpected, a symbol, not just of corporate accountability, but of the lived experience of medical discrimination. She'd started receiving letters, hundreds of them, from patients who'd been dismissed, ignored, or mistreated in emergency rooms across the country. One letter came from a woman in Atlanta. "I went to the ER with stroke symptoms. They told me I was having anxiety and sent me home with Xanax. I had another stroke 3 days later. When I saw what happened to you and how you fought back, it gave me the courage to file a complaint. Thank you." Another from a man in Texas. My son has autism. When he was in pain and couldn't communicate clearly, the ER staff treated him like he was being difficult. They made us wait 6 hours for a broken arm. Your story showed me that this isn't normal. This isn't acceptable. Maya read every letter, and she responded to many of them personally, not with a form letter, but with real words, real acknowledgement of their pain. The Sterling Forward Initiative, funded by the $10 million Maya had pledged that night, became a national model. Medical schools began incorporating it into their curricula. Hospitals in other states requested training materials. And slowly, gradually, the conversation around medical bias began to change. But the real test came on a cold February evening when a young man stumbled into Sterling Heights, Miami's ER. He was dressed in ragged clothes, clearly homeless, smelling of the street and bleeding from a head wound. The triage nurse that night was new, a woman named Patricia Holmes, who'd been hired during the post-scandal rebuilding. She saw the man approach and, for just a moment, hesitated. Her training from her previous hospital told her to be cautious, to verify, to protect the hospital from liability. But then she remembered the banner above her head. Every patient matters. No exceptions. She remembered the videos she'd watched during orientation. She remembered Dr. Sterling's words. Treat the patient first. Ask questions later. Patricia stood up, came around the desk, and gently took the man's arm. Sir, you're hurt. Let's get you back to a bed right now. We'll take care of you. The man looked at her with surprise, as if he'd expected to be turned away, as if he'd been turned away before. Really? He asked quietly. Really? Patricia said. And she meant it. Dr. Chun, watching from the nurse's station, felt tears prick her eyes. This was the moment. This was the change. Not in policy documents or press releases, but in the instant when a nurse chose compassion over caution, humanity over protocol. She pulled out her phone and texted Maya. It's working. The culture is changing. I just watched a nurse do exactly what she was supposed to do. Exactly what you built this place to do. Maya, in her office downtown, read the message and smiled. She'd been working late again, reviewing expansion plans for a new facility in Orlando. But this message made everything worthwhile. She texted back. That's not just her doing her job. That's her being the kind of healthcare worker the world needs. Keep building that culture. One patient, one moment at a time. The story of what happened that October night never completely left the public consciousness. It became a case study in healthcare management courses, a cautionary tale in medical ethics classes, a rallying cry for patient advocacy groups. But for Maya, it became something else, a reminder that systems don't change themselves. People change them. Courageous people who risk their jobs to save lives. Whistleblowers who refuse to stay silent. Patients who demand better. And leaders who, when confronted with their own failures, choose accountability over cover-up. She never forgot the feeling of her throat closing, of gasping for air while being told she didn't matter enough for immediate care. She carried it with her like a scar, visible in how she led, how she listened, how she demanded more from every hospital bearing the Sterling name. And on the nights when she worked late, when she walked the halls of Sterling Heights, Miami after midnight, she would sometimes stop by the ER triage area. She'd stand there quietly, watching the staff work, watching them treat each patient with dignity, watching them prioritize life over paperwork. And she'd remember, 8 minutes was all it took to almost lose everything. But it was also all it took to start changing everything. If you believe everyone deserves dignity in their most vulnerable moments, share this story. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and speak up when you see injustice. Because silence isn't neutrality. It's complicity. And we all have the power to demand better.